Here's the race gender card.
Well, there are polls that also say I have great approval ratings. I
There's
think
a line
the point
card.
that has to be made.
Wow, we would have never believed this. We're on Spotify, we're on Apple, we're on Google. Go out there and listen to us. So we're excited about it. We're glad you're excited about it too.
Hey everyone, welcome to Relevant Rants. We have Tom back with us. I'm Mike here, and we're going to try to change things up a little bit, do things a little bit different, and just kind of see what you guys think. But before we get rolling, I wanted to talk to you guys about Covenant Coffee. Covenant is our new coffee sponsor and one of my favorite coffee companies. They do an amazing job with their coffee, which is really cool that their coffee tastes good and they have an amazing story and amazing purpose behind what they do. Right, Tom?
They got a slogan, and I love it. It's called Flip the Script.
Yeah.
And the cup says 20 years of hope. And the hope's for transitional foster kids. So if you know about foster system, they transition out when they turn 18. And Randy has given them an opportunity to learn a craft. You know, it's about the roasting of the beans, the blending of the coffee, serving customers, learning a cash register skill, and then learning on how you function as a business, cleaning up the place, training them with life skills that allow them to go out and become, you know, something more than what statistics have shown that foster kids can become.
Yeah.
Because, you know, the statistics are that they have a greater chance of, or a possibility of
homelessness, gangs, death, suicide, prison, all of those things.
So Randy's coming in saying, hey, let's give them hope
in a cup,
one sip at a time at Covenant Coffee.
Yeah.
So you can participate.
Go out, check out covenantcoffee.org, and you can get a subscription, and we're helping them get that set up too. So,
I love that.
Anyway, so we wanted to talk today about some stuff going on in California and the education system. I know that's a big thing for you.
It's a big thing at my house. My wife works for the public school system here in California.
Phenomenal educator for 20 some years,
oh,
right?
It's more than that, almost 29.
Yeah.
She's been in private school all the way to the superintendent.
Well, she was my teacher.
Yeah, and then in the public school, she's a superintendent also.
Yeah.
But California moves to silence one of their flagship
leftist universities,
Stanford, that says that researchers who got state data to study education, they've got to promise they aren't going to use it to show how ineffective the California state educational system really is.
Well, I mean, Stanford's sitting there like, hey, we're just telling the truth. They're like, yeah, no, that's the thing. Don't do that. We don't do that here in California, specifically when it comes to our government or the governor himself.
The whole idea is don't make us look bad. But isn't that the whole reason for data to measure or merit the progress? But
it depends. It depends if it's California. We measure progress differently.
Mike, how would you?
We're progressing in our homelessness stats, drug abuse, and illegal immigration.
You have IT businesses, and what if a customer said, "I don't want to measure data"? What would you tell them?
Well, first of all, they wouldn't say that, but second of all, it'd be like,
we probably
business,
shouldn't.
Right? Yeah, you probably shouldn't be a client of ours because you're not going to be around very long.
Yeah, so I'm saying, so if you can't measure data that you're accumulating to show the good and the bad, and I think California, you know what, our governor walks around like he's got broad shoulders because he wants to run for president, Governor Newsom, and if you elect him, what the heck? You know, we live in California, and California is a terrible state. So if you look at the governor, he's done a terrible job.
Oh yeah, well, and everybody knows that, right? Like even the liberals, like they can't deny it at all at this point. So I'm gonna make a detour on you on something here. But I totally forgot about this, but when we were prepping this morning. But there was an article that popped up the other day that said that, and you probably saw this too. California, or no, not just California. Talk about data on the liberal governments, right? The United States' credit rating got demoted. Did you see that? From a AAA rating to a AA plus?
But it should, because we like print money like it's monopoly money.
Well, they're afraid we're going to default on our loans. I mean, and you know what? That could happen. But when you got someone that's on the Chinese payroll in the White House, then you might not worry about that so much.
Nobody picks up the phone and calls Fort Knox, if they have gold, and say, hey, can we print more money? Do we have any more gold that backs that up? And they'll probably go, no. and maybe you shouldn't print money.
Well, now it's on the full faith and credit of the U.S. government. I think that's a good reason for it to be demoted, right? Because when we're in full faith and trust in Joe Biden and his family.
Well, if the you know what, the world leaders are recognizing that Joe is an old, tottering man. He just is. I mean, he goes to the world scene and makes an embarrassment.
I mean, at
United
this point,
States.
like it's a known fact, and it's really like honestly, I know you've said you feel sorry for him, and it's kind of sad. It's like maybe kind of, but really like it's really really sad for the U.S. government to be run by this guy like this completely incompetent to even run his own life, let alone run an entire damn country.
Well, maybe he's better at running the Biden syndicate than he is.
Right.
Because it seems like he and his son made a lot of money. So,
oh, yeah.
But we'll get away from that. We'll get back to that. Because California wants to silence Stanford if they're going to use it to show what a poor job they're doing. But hey, LeBron James, he's a Laker player and didn't do well this year. A lot of people have an opinion about him. But LeBron James came out, and I want to applaud him for starting a school that says, I promise school. I think that's their motto. And it's in Akron, Ohio. But I guess for the 3 years that it's been there, or at least for the last 3 years, they haven't had one single 8th grader pass the math test.
Yeah, that's sad.
I don't know what kind of promises that they're making to these kids, but if you're having a school, you'd probably make the promise, I'm going to teach you.
I imagine LeBron's a big leftist also.
Well,
I promise more indoctrination.
Yeah, LeBron. I feel sorry for his son. I know his son had a cardiac arrest last week.
That's not good.
I don't know if a cardiac arrest is the right word. I don't think we know yet. But he had
Some
cardiac
kind of medical issue.
incident, and I know what those are all about.
You've been through that a little
I've been through that, so I feel there again. I pray for your son, LeBron, and I know you're not watching this, but
very unlikely.
Your school should teach these 8th graders how to pass math. But we know that math tests are racist, and
so we shouldn't do them at all.
They're doing away with tests. So then why are they finding out if the 8th graders don't pass them? I mean, one or the other. In Stanford, why are you doing a data because it matters. I always tell people, they're saying, well, we're going to do this or we're going to go. I remember when people used to ask me to, play a pickup game of football or something. I go, okay. They go, but it doesn't matter. I go, you keeping score? It matters. Right? Isn't that the old adage?
I mean,
if it doesn't matter, then don't keep score.
I know everything my kids do, they want to keep score on it.
Yeah. So it's just funny because somebody keeps score on our good city, Mike. Bakersfield, California, which is home to us. For the time being.
But honestly, like I can see both sides of this because honestly, I'm like, yeah, I don't think they're that wrong. But simultaneously, I agree with your point that they're trying to pick on California or Bakersfield because we're a conservative city.
We know a lot of states in California. So would you agree with them then that Bakersfield is the unhealthiest city in California? Think the cold state of California. Whoa.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, they definitely are trying to poke the bear, right?
Bakersfield, California has been a thorn in the side of this liberal state.
Governor Newsom
for so long. I think
Comrade Newsom.
I think Chinafornia. I think this is the only county that actually voted for him to be
dismissed. Or whatever.
And
whatever you call it, recalled. Yeah.
That's why they have such a distaste and disdain for Bakersfield, California.
Are you really think we're the only ones the only county that majority voted for him to be recalled?
I do hear from from politicians that you and I are acquainted with, and other leaders in our county that we're not the favorite for the Newsom.
Oh, I believe that wholeheartedly.
Yeah,
we're probably one. But you know what? Like, if you look at the state, there's actually quite a few counties that are going to be more conservative. Even Orange County, San Diego County, they're all conservative.
Yep. So, but I guess they're not the unhealthiest. So I guess I guess we're wearing that banner
proudly.
I guess. Yeah. So well. Hey, I try to do my part. You try to do your part. So maybe
I've been committed.
Maybe the rest of Bakersfield needs to pick up our health game, huh? But so I don't get this, Mike. Help me with this one, because there's a popular coffee brand that kind of went out and they put a transgender woman or man. How do so they got a picture of a guy.
Woman if they had the breast removed.
Yeah,
right?
they have
breasts
they
in
have
the
a
first place. So
picture
it must have been initially a woman
for
and still a woman.
Costa Express, and they're showing somebody drinking coffee, and they have blue hair, and it looks like they have, some lipstick on, but then they have the scars from mastectomies.
Right.
Now, I'm not saying maybe they could be signifying breast cancer, because that's prevalent in my the women in my families, so my heart goes out there. But I don't think it's it. Is it, Mike? Is that supposed to? It's supposed to be a person that's had their breasts removed because of gender dysphoria.
Well, I want to know
gender identity.
So I think when we were having our conversation about this pre-show, you were talking about the Marxist agenda, right?
Yeah.
So I want to ask you about that because, I want some clarity on that.
Marxist agenda comes and says you've got to degrade the nuclear family.
Okay. So this is all part of that.
You've got to bring in racial divide.
Okay.
And you have to bring in a different idea about gender.
Why?
I think it's because you have to be able to separate people and give them a reason to disagree. So when you come and say there's only two sexes, people are like, no, there's not. There's something else. And I go, hey, if people want to, in their mind, think that there is, I agree with our friends at the Daily Wire. Gender dysphoria is one of the most dangerous things that they're trying to brainwash kids in. They're trying to allow surgeries to be performed on minors. Our great state of California is kind of saying, hey, we can take your kids away if you don't agree that they want to change their gender. I mean,
you remember when
this is happening. Our great state saying, hey, we're a sanctuary state for abortion. This state of California is going against everything that people have seen that has made California great. I mean, let's look at the last, several decades that California has started to creep away from where it was. We can't drill wells now anymore. We sit in an agriculture area. We're the unhealthiest, but we feed 1/7 of the world.
Right.
In in the San Joaquin Valley, in California, but they want to get away from ag and they want to get away from livestock. So what you have is that Marxist communist idealism that says we got to degrade what has been there working. California's doing a great job. Would you agree?
No. Push the Marxism? Yeah.
Yeah. I'd say if that's
figuring out what's not working.
If they want to make it Chinafornia, hey, if you disagree with me, just go out there and look. You have San Francisco, you have L.A. and San Diego. I mean, you have these three major liberal cities.
Well, and San Diego isn't actually a majority liberal city.
But they carry a lot.
They do, yeah, absolutely.
Because if you look
it's a big hot center.
You look at Newsom, we recalled him, and then you take the Democratic vote from those three cities, they put him back in office.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh.
I mean, it's not.
I believe it for San Francisco, L.A. I mean, I guess you.
It's a numbers thing, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
It's just a numbers thing. Republicans.
But how are people that dumb? That's what just
is that a
baffles
question?
My mind. I mean, honestly, how do people oh yeah, Newsom's doing a terrible job. I think he should stay in office. What? What the hell is wrong with you people?
No, Mike's cussing. We have Mike cussing. Maybe that should be out. So
we should have just a special segment. Mike cusses.
so the Washington Post, just to show you that there's other pushback in other countries, because the LGBTQ community is trying to gain popularity. And you have an article here that's saying, anti-LGBTQ backlash grows across the Middle East, echoing U.S. culture wars. Well, if you look at the Middle East, they predominantly a Muslim-influenced countries, right?
Well, yeah, but over there, they'll just kill them. So,
well, that's on their books. And, a lot of people don't see that. So there's a group of people saying, no, we want to be LGBTQ plus.
Why are they pushing all that over there?
Well, I know because if you look at their religious material, they believe in man and a woman.
Of course.
And so you're having...
They still understand reality?
But they're blaming us for it. But it's not us for it. It's their culture.
Sure.
And so it's funny how everybody says it's the U.S.'s fault. Shows you how bad we are, right?
Well, I mean, like you look at majority of the globe, and I think like if you take the whole society as a whole, people like aren't stupid, but they're trying to promote stupidity.
Well, there again, we talked about our friends at the Daily Wire. I do agree with Matt Walsh, when he keeps trying to get a definition of woman. Now, they want us to believe there's a biological sex, and then there's something you can make up in your head.
Well, yeah, that's what it is. They made it up in their head.
But
it's called crazy.
But you can't get rid of the chromosome.
Right.
I don't care what hormones you take, whatever you do. What does our friend Angelo Fraser say?
Paleontologists will never find transgender bones.
They will not find transgender.
But have you seen the meme going around now? Like, okay, so if your genitals don't determine your sex, why does removing them determine it?
Oh, that's a good one. Mike, come up with a question. Maybe put it in a comment for us. So, yeah. So, it's funny because you even have people trying to
transgender stuff.
Well, you have Michigan trying to propose a new law that's going to make anything that you say that hurts somebody's feeling or make them feel inferior or intimidated, just make them feel that way. It just maybe not even your intent.
Well, what's the test for that, Tom? Because
I don't know.
Can't like anybody say that something hurt their feelings over nothing?
Well, here's one of Michigan's tests. Misgendering will be a felony.
But except for they're using it the wrong way, because misgendering is calling a woman a man, not calling a man a man.
Well, they're basically trying to get us to buy into the lie.
Right.
When I say us, the people that believe that there is a man and a woman, and that's
you mean people that aren't delusional?
Yes. Well, that goes back to the gender dysphoria, and I think if you go out there and watch the documentary. What is a woman? Matt Walsh, you did a great job, Matt. I mean, it's just one of those things where you got to answer that question. Don't you love it when these very educated, smart people make themselves look stupid?
Well, you know what?
Is that I say that right?
Yeah.
When you have a Supreme Court
educated
judge.
people, not smart
educated.
People.
Yeah. I know maybe I shouldn't equate education with smart. I mean intelligent.
Well, yeah, but I mean just because you can be good at taking a test doesn't mean that you're smart.
I stand corrected, Mike Harvey. But she can sit in front of Congress and say she doesn't know what is a man or a woman, and you need to be a biologist. And I go, I don't think most people need to be a biologist. I think they just need to see what you were given, and you can make a decision on that.
Yeah, well, what's interesting is, so you see the rise in drug use and drug abuse, and the legalization of drug use and drug abuse, frankly, and not only that, the promotion of in certain cities of drug abuse, right? Like, hey, we got places where you can come and shoot up for free, and we'll help you do it. But the simultaneous minimization or lack of assistance or whatever you want to call it for people with mental disorders. Do you know? Okay, I'm going to say something that's kind of controversial, frankly, and
that surprises me.
And so I don't think it's controversial. However, a lot of people will. Did you know that it was? I think it was only back in the 70s, and it was not even that long ago for transgenderism, was considered a mental disorder. But did you know that back in the 70s, I believe it was, homosexuality was considered a mental disorder?
There is a lot of other countries that look at that a lot more serious than we do, and they have laws on the book that punish those crimes a lot more serious.
But you go back to talking about the Marxist agenda, right? Well, then it all makes sense, because they've been pushing that. The hippies from the 70s that are now in Congress and the White House have been pushing that Marxist agenda from way back then. Because the sad part is, I think reality, and I think they're simultaneously both deluded and corrupt, right? But I think their initial motives may have been altruistic, but over that time, they became deluded and corrupt, right? So they were like, oh, well, we're going to make this ideal society, there's a word for it, utopia, right? We're going to make this utopian society based on this Marxist theory. And really, like, the reality is every single place that has been tried in the entire world, it's failed. And it's not just failed, it's failed miserably with human rights violations to the extreme degree of murders and genocide.
Mike, you and I have friends that have left some Middle Eastern countries that talk about how terrible those regimes are.
Right.
I've got friends that have left Cuba.
So do I.
And they talk about how terrible and what it was a blessing to come to the United States. And now they see the United States talking about some of those ideas.
Yeah.
You know, like going, no, let's tell you what they're like. So I think as the Michigan starts to try to make free speech hate speech, you know, and you know, we know that
truthful speech hate speech.
You know, well, they're trying to get us to agree with them, and they're trying to use the law. Hey, we know some states that or countries that did that. And how well it turned out.
I don't think they're even necessarily trying to get us to agree with them. They're trying to force us to comply with lying.
Yeah, comply. Comply is probably the better word. Comply is probably the better word. Well, it's interesting.
Speaking of liars,
it's that's funny, Mike. So this week when Kamala Harris was faced with a question, and I think it was ABC.
You want to pull up the video, Alex?
Yeah, I think it was ABC reporter. And Mike, you said something that was interesting. Hold on. Is it ABC? It is ABC.
Yeah.
She was pitched a softball.
Oh, yeah. And she struck out.
Can we watch
Slow
it?
pitch to softball and struck out.
Oh,
go ahead and play it, Alex.
There are reports that say that you have the lowest approval rating of any vice president. I'm curious how much of a role, if any, that you feel race and gender play.
Here's the
in
race
that.
gender card.
Well, there are polls that also say I have great approval ratings. I
There's
think
a line
the point
card.
that has to be made is that there are attempts to create distractions away from the accomplishments.
Like her.
of our
What
administration.
accomplishments?
You know what's so funny? They lobbed her a softball.
Yeah, they're like, hey, here you go. They could have thrown it any softer. Use this as your excuse for why your approval ratings are down. She's like, oh, no, they're not down. Like, really? You failed that test.
Statistic. Maybe that's what Stanford should focus on.
Oh, my goodness. Produce some artificial results. Maybe they're the ones that produce artificial polls saying that she's done a good job. What the hell has she actually even done other than just make a disgrace of herself and embarrass herself?
She laughs.
You know what? She reminds me a little bit. Her laugh reminds me of the Joker.
Yes.
For Batman.
Because it is a joke. Oh, that's funny. Yeah, it's funny. We get in so much trouble with this, Mike.
That's all right. I'm having fun today.
So here we all know that the Biden administration dipped into our petroleum reserve to make the gas prices come down because that's Bidenomics.
Well, remember if you're paying attention, remember the timing of that. It was right before the midterm elections.
Yeah, it's so funny when you think about it. I mean, give free oil into the economy, and so gas prices come down. So everybody thinks we're doing a good job. That's Bidenomics, actually. But so the Biden administration cancels offer for 6 million barrels to refill strategic petroleum reserve. Now that would be pretty smart. You got to realize if I'm going to do this to fake a reduction in the economy of the price of petroleum or gas, then I need to refill it.
Right.
But that costs money because that's going to end up showing at the bottom line someplace. You would think.
But really, if he had any ounce of intelligence at all, right now would probably be the best time to do that because we're far enough away from the election that it wouldn't hurt him that bad.
Well, you know what's interesting? Because if you want to force people to electric cars, have no oil, right?
Yeah, good point.
So why refill it unless you're like Ford Motor Company? Because they're realizing that they've lost $4.5 billion, and it's all from electric vehicles this year. So this company has said that their second quarter earnings report released on Thursday was $4.5 billion in the red, and it's because of electric cars. So they got a plan. they're going to...
That's a lot of money, Tom.
Yeah, it is. They're going to embrace hybrids. Well, I think they already had hybrids. They just tried to embrace the all-electric gig.
Yeah, but isn't a hybrid also have electric components to it?
Yeah, it's a generator.
Right.
You put a little bit of gas in it, it creates your electricity to drive. Does that make sense? Because you don't have to impact the grid like our state of California. You know, all we heard was we're going to go all electric by, I forgot the unrealistic date.
I thought it was like 2035 or something.
That's unrealistic because we don't have enough power. So when everybody's
we can't even keep the lights on now.
Well, what happened a few months ago?
Yeah.
When it got hot here, Governor Newsom asked us not to plug in electric cars.
So what does that mean? Don't go to work because I'm a dumb.
Well, we hope you kept a fossil fuel burning vehicle to get you to gas because you can't distance work anymore. So
you mean like all the Teslas that are pulling around a fuel tank behind them?
Well, see, I can say this because I had an all electric car, and it is impractical. I told the friends of mine that asked me to drive it and kind of give them some feedback. I go, it doesn't work.
That was kind of a nice car too.
I love that car. It was fast. It was zippy.
Yeah.
But I had charging anxiety because I wasn't sure I could make it home if I wanted to use air conditioning on a 107-degree day.
Right.
I had to make a choice between
making it home or being cool,
walking or staying cool. But there again, so Ford gets it. Ford gets it. We need fossil fuels, and a hybrid's great. That's where they should have went the first time.
Yeah, I mean, we can keep California out of it, and California just do whatever the hell you want because you're a bunch of dumb asses. But the rest of the country still needs fuel.
Isn't it great? Because this week, I think a lot of Biden's attempt is to deflect this Devon Archer torpedo that he shot right into the side of the Biden.
Oh yeah. Well,
Biden Titanic.
notice the interesting timing of the Trump indictment. It just came like, we got to do some shit right now because otherwise Biden's going to look like the con, the fraud, the criminal that he is.
Relevant rants is causing Mike to cuss.
Hey, well,
but there again,
I'd rather get it out here than at home.
You know what is interesting? Devon Archer was reportedly Hunter Biden's best friend, BFFs. I mean,
so Devon Archer was a hooker.
No. Basically, I think there's some communication between them that said they would have the last laugh, and so you got a friend who is doing some time, and they tried to keep him not to testify by making him go to jail conveniently before he's supposed to testify to the oversight committee. I mean, they're saying, hey, we just want to hear what the guy had to say.
Yeah.
And of course the DOJ is like, we don't want to because our boss is on the hook for it. The Biden syndicate leader, the head of the crime family, will look bad.
Well, let me ask you a question. Who's the real head of the Biden crime family? Is it Joe or is it Dr. Jill?
I don't know. Or is it
Hillary?
Or is it Mr. Obama? You know, and I can say that nowadays because I think if we're going to start pulling, we'll get into this later though. But when the judge overseeing the January 6th charges or trumped up charges against Trump just called him Mr. Trump. So if we're going to start that game,
well, the level of contempt and disrespect that shows is incredible.
Yeah, it is.
And it's like. They just don't care.
What if somebody came in and didn't call her Your Honor?
Well, I mean, the thing is, like, she's in an official office, like a federal judge, right?
Yeah.
I assume it's a federal judge.
That cares about the respect of a title.
Is supposed to care about.
Yeah.
Right? But is going to show that much disrespect for an ex-president that is also the number one candidate for the next election. Is incredible that she would even go there.
Maybe it just slipped her mind. It's like the next story we're going to talk about. So, a secret medical biolab was found in California. Let's listen to the clip.
Secret medical research lab with ties to the Chinese government in California? Well, Trace Gallagher, Fox's chief breaking news correspondent and anchor of Fox News at Night, has all the details. Yeah. Trace.
Laura, for those who don't know California, this lab was found in the eastern part of the state, about 3 hours northeast of Los Angeles near Yosemite National Park. It was a nondescript warehouse, but a code enforcement officer noticed a hose coming from the back of the building, which is often an indicator that it could be a meth lab. Instead, it turns out to be a Chinese-run bio
something much
lab.
worse.
Here's the officer who made the discovery. Watch her.
I was shocked, surprised, completely in awe, because it was the last thing I would have anticipated finding. I would have never anticipated a biological lab being stored in a warehouse in the manner that it was being stored in.
Investigators were also baffled because the biolab contained hundreds of vials of deadly pathogens like HIV, herpes, tuberculosis, malaria, along with pregnancy and COVID test kits. There were also more than 1,000 mice, most of them dead, that were being used in the testing. Authorities say the lab was run by a company called Prestige Biotech, which was not licensed in California. The company's president is Chinese, but all the Chinese locations of Prestige Biotech turned out to be just empty offices. In the past, the company has claimed that it was manufacturing COVID-19 and pregnancy tests, but there has been no explanation as to why more than a dozen infectious diseases were being secretly tested in a very rural part of California. Now, the people connected to the California lab are not talking. Which begs
you mean Governor Newsom?
What are they trying to conceal? I mean, the whole thing sounds like an
we called the governor and he wouldn't answer our calls.
Except this lab was likely.
He said, "Leave those guys alone. Those poor Chinese. Why are you picking on them?"
Chinese lab testing deadly pathogens. It's very familiar and very concerning. We're hoping to get more information about this, Laura, in the coming days.
Trace, that is such a wild story.
Yeah, it is.
It doesn't surprise me, though, does it?
No, but
Dr. Anthony Fauci made it out right before they showed up.
Let me ask you a question. He had a meeting there with Newsom. You think that Governor Newsom knew about this lab?
No, he has plausible deniability. But somebody that he put in office knew about this lab.
Sure.
Well, if they didn't, it just shows you how corrupt the California is. So leprosy is spreading in Florida. You know,
it makes you wonder if that's linked, right?
Well, you wonder, maybe, they've got a bio lab there. I don't know. It's like if we have one in California, but you know what? They got a great governor.
Yeah.
DeSantis, he'll figure this one out. You know, it's interesting when certain people that used to, you wouldn't even watch their show. Now I look forward to Bill Maher.
Well, I told you a story about Bill Maher, and like I had a friend who, long story, would talk about Bill Maher, and I was like, oh, who's this Bill Maher guy? He would mention him, but he didn't say much about him. So I was like, well, let me watch him. I just turned him on one night. I was like, oh, what the hell? My friend's a big lip. And this was like, I don't know, 10, 12 years ago, something like that. And I was watching him, and I was like, well, I have no desire to watch this guy. And then turns out now he's a conservative?
Yeah. Well, I think somebody that would say this, and since you're cussing, Mike, you might want to say what he said.
Bill Maher says Democrats are full of shit.
Yes.
Disastrous handling of homelessness, migrant crisis. Yeah, of course they are.
Well,
but talk about progress. This is where they're progressing in homelessness and migrant crisis.
Oh, well, basically he's saying that they're being hypocrites and crying foul over the mass influx of asylum seekers because they brought them in.
Right.
It's like hello. The host from HBO Sanctuary said sanctuary cities have been a host with their petard by signaling that they welcome migrants. Just to panic now that they're a problem?
Right.
What the heck? So you love it when somebody.
Well, if they have half a brain, maybe it's like, okay, we want you to come in like around the end of October, beginning of November, 2024, and then can you just leave right after that?
Don't stay. I love that. What do we got next here, Mike?
No, I think we're pretty much at the end at this point. So
well, hey, Mike, it's always been fun. I hope you've enjoyed a different little format.
Yeah.
But Mike still gets riled up and still cussing.
I do.
So,
I'm sorry.
So I don't know if we're well.
Are we YouTube safe?
I don't know. I think we might be for a
Alex
while.
says no.
Well, you know what's happening is, doggone it, if we were in Michigan, we'd be in real trouble.
Right.
So.
What does it say? They're full of shit. Anyway, go drink some Covenant coffee. Have a great day.
Bye.